Let's be honest, there's something irresistible about a device that looks sleek, shiny, and futuristic. Apple knows this better than anyone. From the moment Steve Jobs pulled the MacBook Air out of an envelope in 2008, Apple set the stage for a new era of design. One where thinness wasn't just a feature, but a status symbol. It wasn't enough for your devices to work well. They had to look good doing it. And at first, this obsession with thinness felt revolutionary. Who wouldn't want lighter laptops and slimmer phones? But as the years passed, it became clear that Apple's fixation on shaving off every last millimeter came with some serious downsides. Take the iPhone 6, for example. When it launched, the tech world buzzed with excitement. It was thinner, lighter, and more elegant than ever. But it wasn't long before Bendgate hit the headlines. People discovered that their shiny new phones were bending just from sitting in their pockets. It was almost comical, except for the fact that it wasn't funny for those who had to deal with warped devices. Apple's quest for thinness had pushed the limits of durability, and consumers were left holding the bag, literally. But this wasn't a one-time issue. Over the years, Apple has repeatedly sacrificed practicality for aesthetics. Remember when they introduced the butterfly keyboard on the MacBook? The thinner design was supposed to be a game changer, but it turned into one of Apple's biggest flops. Keys got stuck from the tiniest specks of dust. Entire keyboards needed replacing, and Apple eventually had to admit defeat by returning to the old design. Sure, the butterfly keyboard looked great, but it was a disaster for anyone who actually needed to use it. And let's not forget the relentless pursuit of thinner batteries. While Apple touts their software's efficiency, the reality is that smaller batteries mean shorter battery life. It's no coincidence that we've seen a rise in battery packs and charging accessories alongside Apple's thinnest devices. It's as if Apple's design choices are creating a market for products to fix the problems they introduced, and we're the ones footing the bill. This obsession with thinness has also led to some bizarre decisions, like the removal of the headphone jack. Apple claimed it was a courageous move to make room for new technology and slimmer designs. But let's be real, it was a move that forced millions of people to buy new headphones or adapters. And while AirPods have become incredibly popular, they've also introduced a whole new set of problems, from lost earbuds to e-waste. All of this for the sake of a thinner phone. The thing is, Apple's obsession with thinness doesn't just impact the durability or functionality of its devices, it also affects repairability. Ever tried fixing a modern Apple product? It's like solving a puzzle designed to frustrate you at every turn. Over the years, Apple has made its devices increasingly difficult to open, let alone repair. Components are glued together instead of screwed in. Batteries are almost impossible to replace without specialized tools, and even something as simple as a cracked screen can cost you hundreds of dollars to fix. This design philosophy has a ripple effect that goes far beyond your wallet. Think about the environmental cost. Every time a device becomes more difficult to repair, it increases the likelihood that people will simply replace it instead. And what happens to those old devices? Many end up in landfills, contributing to the growing e-waste crisis. Sure, Apple promotes its recycling programs, but let's face it, the best way to reduce e-waste isn't to recycle, it's to make products that last longer and are easier to fix. But making something repairable often means making it a little thicker, a little less seamless. And that's a trade-off Apple seems unwilling to make. Take the MacBook Air as an example. It's an engineering marvel, no doubt about it. But if you open it up, you'll find a maze of proprietary components, soldered parts, and glued-in batteries. Compare this to laptops from brands like Framework, which are designed with modularity and repairability in mind. You can replace individual parts on a Framework laptop with ease, extending its lifespan and reducing waste. Meanwhile, Apple seems to double down on its buy, use, replace cycle, wrapped in the guise of innovation. What's ironic is that this approach runs counter to some of Apple's own messaging. The company often talks about its commitment to sustainability, boasting about its carbon-neutral goals and the use of recycled materials in its products. But how sustainable is a device that's nearly impossible to repair? How green is it to glue in a battery instead of making it swappable? These contradictions make it clear that Apple's design priorities aren't always aligned with its environmental promises. And then there's the cost to consumers. Apple's devices are already some of the most expensive on the market. But the inability to repair them easily means you're locked into a cycle of high maintenance costs or forced upgrades. Got a cracked screen? That'll be a hefty repair bill. Battery not holding a charge? Time to buy a new device. This isn't just inconvenient, it's exploitative. Apple's sleek, thin designs might look futuristic, but they come with a built-in expiration date. What's even more concerning is how Apple's relentless pursuit of thinness impacts innovation, or rather limits it. By prioritizing aesthetics over functionality, Apple often neglects opportunities to truly push the boundaries of what technology can do. Think about the iPad, for instance. It's an incredible device, but for years, many users have begged for features like better cooling for high-performance tasks, improved multitasking capabilities, or even an iPad with ports that professionals actually need. Yet Apple keeps doubling down on making it thinner and sleeker, as if that's the only metric that matters. This design philosophy isn't just frustrating, it's wasteful. Imagine what Apple could achieve if it focused less on shaving off millimeters and more on adding features that genuinely enhance the user experience. A slightly thicker iPhone could house a larger battery, ensuring all-day usage even for the most demanding tasks. A more modular MacBook could allow users to upgrade their storage or RAM, extending the device's lifespan by years. But these ideas rarely make it past Apple's design lab because they don't align with the brand's obsession with minimalist aesthetics. Let's not ignore the fact that thinness often compromises comfort. Take the iPhone 12 and 13 series, for example. While the flat-edge design looks great in photos, it can feel sharp and uncomfortable to hold for extended periods. Older iPhones with curved edges might not have been as trendy, but they were far easier on the hands. This is a clear example of form trumping function, and it raises the question, who are these designs really for? Are they optimized for users, or are they just meant to look good in marketing materials? The same goes for laptops. The thinner the device, the harder it becomes to include features like robust cooling systems, leading to overheating and throttle performance. The MacBook Pro has faced criticism for years because its thin design limits airflow, causing it to underperform during intensive tasks like video editing or 3D rendering. Professionals who rely on these machines are left wondering why Apple can't seem to prioritize performance over aesthetics, especially when they're paying premium prices for Pro devices. And here's where Apple's approach becomes even more puzzling. The company has proven time and again that it can innovate without compromising functionality. Look at the Apple Watch. It's compact, feature-packed, and incredibly durable, despite its small size. Or consider the Mac Studio, a device that's unapologetically thick and powerful, designed to meet the needs of creatives and professionals. These products show that Apple knows how to prioritize functionality when it wants to. So why does the company insist on clinging to this thinness at all costs mentality for its flagship devices? It's not just the hardware that suffers from Apple's obsession with thinness, it's the user experience too. Think about the infamous butterfly keyboard debacle. In its quest to make MacBooks slimmer, Apple introduced a new keyboard mechanism that was, frankly, a disaster. The butterfly keyboard was prone to sticking, breaking, and accumulating dust, rendering entire laptops unusable. The backlash was so intense that Apple had to eventually revert to the more reliable scissor switch mechanism, effectively admitting that thinner wasn't better. This isn't an isolated incident. Apple's love affair with thinness has created similar problems across its product lineup. For example, the removal of the headphone jack from the iPhone was framed as a courageous move towards a wireless future. But let's be real, it was more about saving internal space to make the device slimmer. The result? Millions of users had to deal with dongles, adapters, and the hassle of incompatible accessories. Sure, wireless headphones are great, but wouldn't it have been better to transition more gradually without forcing users into a corner? And let's talk about battery life. Apple loves to boast about how energy efficient its devices are, but efficiency can only go so far when battery capacity is limited by design. A slightly thicker iPhone or MacBook could easily house a larger battery, providing users with a genuinely all-day experience without needing to constantly hunt for a charger. Instead, Apple opts for incremental improvements that feel like stopgap measures rather than true solutions. The irony is that users often end up solving these problems themselves in ways that contradict Apple's design philosophy. How many people do you know who slap a bulky case on their ultra-thin iPhone to protect it? Or buy third-party battery packs because their MacBook can't make it through a full workday? These add-ons completely negate the supposed benefits of thinness, proving that Apple's priorities don't always align with real-world needs. Then there's the question of sound quality. Remember when Apple removed the built-in speaker grills from the MacBook to create a more seamless design? The result was a laptop that sounded muffled and tinny, far from the immersive audio experience Apple likes to tout. And yet, rather than addressing these issues head-on, Apple seems content to market aesthetics over functionality, hoping users won't notice or won't care. This brings us back to the core issue. Who benefits from all this thinness? It's certainly not the average user who ends up dealing with more fragile devices, higher repair costs, and compromised features. It's not the planet either, as these ultra-thin designs often lead to more waste and less sustainability. The only real winner here is Apple's bottom line, as the company continues to sell the illusion of innovation wrapped in a sleek, minimalist package. What's most frustrating about all of this is that Apple doesn't need to sacrifice functionality for thinness to stay ahead of the competition. The company already has one of the most loyal customer bases in the world, people who would gladly embrace slightly thicker devices if it meant more durability, better battery life, and fewer compromises. Yet Apple seems intent on walking a tightrope, balancing on the razor-thin edge of design trends, rather than taking bold steps to redefine what great technology should be. Consider this: the tech landscape is evolving faster than ever. Competitors like Samsung, Google, and even smaller brands are pushing boundaries with foldable displays, advanced AI integration, and modular designs. Instead of keeping pace, Apple often feels like it's playing catch-up, repackaging old ideas in thinner shells and slapping on a premium price tag. If this trend continues, how long will it be before even the most die-hard Apple fan start questioning whether they're getting their money's worth? The thinness obsession also ties into a broader issue: Apple's resistance to repairability. By making devices thinner, Apple creates products that are harder to open, harder to fix, and more dependent on proprietary tools. This forces users to either pay exorbitant fees for Apple's repair services or replace their devices entirely, contributing to e-waste and environmental harm. And while Apple has made strides in areas like recycled materials and carbon neutrality, these efforts are undermined by the very design choices that make their products disposable in the first place. Let's not forget that Apple has the resources and talent to lead the industry in a more sustainable, user-focused direction. Imagine if the next iPhone prioritized durability over thinness, offering a rugged design that could withstand years of use without a case. Or if MacBooks were built with modular components, allowing users to upgrade their devices instead of replacing them every few years. These aren't just pipe dreams. They're realistic possibilities that Apple could achieve if it shifted its focus from thinness to functionality. Ultimately, Apple's thinness obsession isn't just about design. It's a reflection of the company's broader priorities. It's about selling an image of innovation, even when that image doesn't always match reality. It's about maintaining control over the user experience, even when that control comes at the expense of user freedom. And of course, it's about maximizing profits, even when that means cutting corners or ignoring the needs of everyday users. The question we, as consumers, need to ask is this: how much longer are we willing to accept this trade-off? How much thinner can Apple's devices get before they lose their soul entirely? It's time for Apple to rethink its priorities, not just for the sake of its customers, but for the future of technology as a whole. And that's where you come in. If you agree, or even if you disagree, let's keep this conversation going. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future deep dives into Apple and the tech industry. Apple has just released the iPhone 17 Air, and yes, it's officially one of the slimmest phones the company has ever made. At just 5.6 millimeters thick, it's thinner than a pencil, thinner than most credit card stacks, and even thinner than many of Apple's own past devices. On paper, it's a design marvel: sleek, futuristic, and undeniably beautiful. But here's the problem. Apple's obsession with thinness is starting to hurt the very people who use these phones every day. When you first hold the iPhone 17 Air, it really is jaw-dropping. It feels almost unreal in the hand, like a piece of glass and metal stripped down to its absolute minimum. But the moment you start thinking about what's missing, the cracks begin to show. Apple has once again traded practicality for aesthetics, and in the process, the iPhone 17 Air reveals a bigger issue with Apple's design philosophy. Let's start with the battery. Apple promises all-day battery life, but whose day are we talking about? The 17 Air has a noticeably smaller battery than every other phone in the lineup. And while Apple claims efficiency gains from the new A19 and N1 chips help offset the smaller size, the truth is simple. Physics doesn't lie. Less physical space means less battery capacity. Thinness has come at the direct cost of endurance. And it's no coincidence that Apple announced a new MagSafe power pack designed specifically for the Air, because they know this phone won't last as long as it should. Next, the camera. The iPhone 17 Air only has one rear camera, a single 48-megapixel lens. Compare that to the standard iPhone 17, which offers multiple cameras, including ultrawide. In 2025, a $1,000 phone with just one camera is almost laughable. And again, this compromise was made in the name of keeping the phone thin. Audio also takes a hit. The iPhone 17 Air has just one speaker. In a world where we're consuming more video and audio content than ever, dropping down to mono sound feels like a step backward. But the reasoning is the same. Thinness above all else. And this is where Apple's obsession becomes clear. They want to sell you the idea that thinner automatically means better. But is it really? The iPhone 17 Air proves that beyond a certain point, thinness becomes a gimmick. A regular phone is not too thick. Nobody was complaining that the iPhone 16 or 17 Pro were unbearable bricks. Yet Apple keeps chasing millimeters, sacrificing features that actually improve the user experience. The iPhone 17 Air will turn heads. It's gorgeous, no doubt. But it also exposes the dangers of Apple's design tunnel vision. By prioritizing form over function, Apple risks delivering products that impress in the showroom but frustrate in the real world. So yes, the iPhone 17 Air is thin. It's record-breaking. But in chasing that extreme, Apple has once again shown us the downside of their obsession: beauty without balance.